Welcome to It Starts With You, where we cut through the noise and get real about the behaviours that shape our lives, both personally and professionally. I'm Vicky O'Farrell. Let's jump in because behaviours start with you. So, welcome to another episode of It Starts With You with me, Vicky O'Farrell. And this episode, I am delighted to be joined by Thomas Duncan Bell. In fact, you've only got Thomas on your little name thing there. I have to look down to remember
I
your
have
name.
actually, yeah.
But rather than me introduce you, Thomas,
That
would you like to let?
mental bloke.
Oh, I don't like to give you that label.
That's fine. It's coming from me, so it's okay.
Okay, but for our viewers and our listeners, would you like to, as you describe it yourself, your smorgasbord of mental ailments, what you do, and who you are in this world?
So, who I am in this world? Ooh, that's deep. Gonna have to look to the stars for that one, but I'll try
Oh,
and
okay.
describe some of the fundamentals. So, my name's Thomas Duncan Bell, as you said. I'm known internationally as the Bipolar Businessman. I've been a mental health commentator and keynote speaker for over a decade now, working with the likes of the BBC and HSBC and a myriad of other big businesses, helping people to understand more about how to live a sustainably happy lifestyle. And you mentioned my smorgasbord of mental ailments. I am on the bipolar spectrum. I've got ADHD, PTSD, both from childhood trauma and from going over to Ukraine to support as part of the International Legion in defense of Ukraine at the start of the war, and also dyslexia and dyspraxia. So I'm battling what I can where I can, and I'm aiming to use my lived experience to support others to develop. And now I run a company called Wellbeing in the Wilderness, where I take groups of people on adventure challenges around the world, whether it be the Sahara Desert to a trek up Machu Picchu, and run well-being workshops throughout the course of that challenge to help them self-develop and learn new things about themselves and find themselves as a human being while we raise money for charity. So I'm living the dream
Well, whilst you deal with all of that, now,
whilst I
I
deal
mean,
with all the madness.
I was going
Yes.
to say, I was going to say bingo, full house, but you haven't got OCD, so I can't.
No,
Um,
wouldn't do anything for me.
the let's talk about behaviors in terms of the basics of behaviors. I will start with your personalities, and I've seen your disc profile, so nothing outrageous there. In fact, actually, under pressure, everything comes above the line, and if you understand the disc profiling, you'll know what that means. Is actually you'd be a great person to have when the pressure's on. The thing is, any neurodivergence doesn't come up on a disc profile. It just doesn't show, which is fair enough. It's really only kind of things that we've been talking about in the last decade, really, isn't it? It's not been something that we've. I think there was other words that we used to call people when you and me were at school. So I know you're not
Even
quite
10
as old.
years ago, there was barely the term depression
No,
utilized when it
no.
came to mental ill health, right? So it's come a long way in 10 years, but at the same time, it's not gone anywhere.
So, but how does your whether it's actually out of all of those neurodivergence that you have, what would you say is the strongest that gives you the most disruption in your life?
The one that I definitely struggle with the most is the ADHD, for sure. So I think for me, um, I grew up in a very volatile environment. So you mentioned I'm a guy that's good under pressure and this kind of thing. I think that's cultivated off the back of my formative years being in a very destructive and scary environment. So my
Hmm.
body is kind of programmed to operate very effectively in states of high anxiety or high adrenaline. Hence, when I
Okay.
went to Ukraine at the start of the war, my mindset was that I'm very kind of tuned in. I call it kind of like the spider senses. If
Hmm.
I'm riding motorbikes or I'm driving like racetracks or something like that, or whatever it might be, when there are states of high anxiety, everything kind of slows down for me in a way. And I'm very hyper aware of what decisions to make when. And I do not question my instinct, do not question myself. As soon as you question yourself, you're dead. Like, this is my kind of mindset. And so I think with the ADHD, I think part of the challenge is that there's this procrastination that comes with ADHD where you leave things a little bit to the last minute very often because then you're under pressure and then stuff gets done.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something else then, but I'm not sure if I can swear.
No,
So
please don't swear on the
I did
podcast.
it. So I did it, which is good for me because the only vices I have left in my life are coffee and swearing. So I'm going to be a good boy for you. But yeah, so I think ADHD is the most challenging. But the aspect of, um, I guess, which partly plays into childhood PTSD, but also the bipolar spectrum narrative is also this feeling of low self-worth and performance that equals love, respect, and this kind of thing. So if we take that down two channels, um, I care less about, let's say, from a vocational perspective,
Hmm.
when it came to working in sales, making money, this kind of thing, I cared more about the excitement of getting the deal over the line than I did getting the money in the bank, for
Right.
example.
Okay.
Right. So it's actually that, like, I want to be performative and get the kudos for being performative. I don't really care about the perks of that. I just want everyone to know that I'm gunning and to love me and this kind of thing. From a relationship capacity, um, the challenge is when you don't have a lot of that love growing up, then you feel like you have to perform for love.
Mm.
So I think those kind of aspects, and you're not deserving of love. So there's
Right.
this
Okay.
there's this uh, kind of level of self-doubt that comes with being on this kind of bipolar spectrum and not feeling worthwhile or worthy or whatever. And that's like seeds depression and anxiety in that vein. But it also taps into some of those other things, which is why I call it the smorgasbord, because I'm working with
Yeah.
nuances of different challenges, and that's what makes it maybe sometimes difficult to, I guess, sustain a level of
Mm.
feeling happy or feeling gratitude.
And when did all of this get unpacked for you? Is it been a gradual thing or?
It's definitely happened gradually to a degree. There was a point in my life where I was in a very destructive relationship, very abusive relationship, and at the same time my father passed away. I was about 22 at the time, and it sent me to the point like my ex-partner was cheating on me and this kind of thing. Then my dad died and I was being abused in this
Mm.
relationship and this kind of stuff. And I was very weak and vulnerable and insecure. And I decided that I wanted to take my own life. So there was a point where I was stood on this train track looking to check out. And in that moment, I think I felt like there was, I always felt like I had something to offer, like I wanted to make an impact in the world in some way, like a footnote in history in some context, even if in a small way. Like I was, I had something to give. But at the time, I didn't feel worthy and I didn't feel loved. And I didn't know what that purpose was. But I pulled myself off of that and I took myself to the doctors and things like that. And I ended up getting diagnosed as being on the bipolar spectrum. That gave me a foundation, understanding what they did through those assessments and learning a bit more about psychology as a whole at that point, which I didn't really have much knowledge of before, um, just helped me to underline how to move forward. So what the doctor said to me was they said, well, actually, a lot of the issues that you're challenged by are based off of this environmental situation in your formative years.
Right.
And your mind has been mapped in such a way.
Hmm.
What most people don't know is that 97% of our inbuilt daily habits and traits are off the back of what we experienced during the first 7 years of our life, between 1 and 7 years old, those formative years. Only 3% of our daily inbuilt habits and traits happen after 7 years old onwards. So if that first 7 years is chaotic, misaligned,
Mm.
destructive, you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to unpack that. And so what I decided in that moment was, okay, if my mind has been mapped like that, I'm now going to take on a course of action whereby I unmap my mind, as I called it. And I'm going to realign what my values are. I'm going to realign how I think and how I operate, whether that be chemically, in the context of me trying to form new habits that make different chemicals in my mind make me happier, or whatever it might be. Because when you're born into trauma and abusive situations, you're then drawn into that because it feels like normal. which is particularly unhealthy in relationships. And I'm sure many people listening to this will attest to that. Hence, I spent a lot of time coaching people out of toxic relationships, and you and I have spoken about those types of things before. And so I think that's not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And it takes a lot of work and introspection and understanding of oneself to move beyond that and try and learn what healthy, safe, and calm looks like. And that's what I try and impart on others now. What have I learned through testing this dummy, like over the last 20 years now? And how can you impart that into your life?
And yeah, I mean, we've had some quite triggering conversations actually before we recorded this podcast over the last couple of months, just because obviously I was in a very toxic previous marriage. But how how do you help people understand that where they are now isn't a place that they have to stay? If somebody is unhappy, and let's face it, even if you just look at the Gallup report from the workplace 2025, and like, God, 67% of the people are not happy in the workplace. But I don't know actually how many people understand that they're not happy. I just say, ask yourself, if you get on a Sunday night that like, oh God, I've got to go back to work tomorrow. I'm like, there's something not right. How do you get people to stop and look in the mirror and have those deep conversations?
Listen, there are four fundamentals when it comes to the makeup of any human being's well-being. On the baseline, the bottom of your pyramid, let's say, because I have a pyramid that I would normally show people, but I'll spell it out for you. So on the baseline of this pyramid, or the foundation of good well-being, is our physical well-being. And physical well-being for me encapsulates your sleep, your nutrition, and your movement, ultimately. And you could put in there kind of mindfulness and all that jazz. But the fundamentals are eating, and trying to eat as healthy as possible, moving your body, and sleeping. If you don't have those three things in terms of looking after your physical well-being as a human, you will not have solid emotional well-being. You won't be able to control your emotions because you'll be fluctuating, you'll be anxious, right?
Yeah.
If you can't control your emotions, happy, sad, angry, whatever it might be, you won't have solid mental well-being, which is the third layer of the pyramid. And mental well-being is fundamentally your cognitive function. That's your decision making. So if you're not doing the physical and if you haven't got the emotional, you're not going to make the right decisions. You're going to play into bad behaviors. You're going to get addicted to things. You're going to abuse people, this kind of stuff. Or you're going to make bad decisions at work. Set off a nuclear reactor if you're Homer Simpson in a power plant, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
And if you don't have those three layers, you will never have a sense of spiritual well-being, as many people might call it, but I don't believe in religion, so I would call it a sense of purpose or meaning. And when I was stood on that train track, I didn't have a sense of purpose or meaning. And fundamentally, as human beings, if we don't have a sense of purpose or meaning in our life, we don't hold on to our values as an individual.
We don't
If
value
you
our
don't have a
life.
sense of purpose or meaning, you can't move forward. You cannot move forward because everything seems redundant and you feels like you're treading water, and that's depression, anxiety, and things will set in because you don't feel like you're making an impact. So what I help people to do is I help them to understand that on the base level, when we talk about that physical well-being, those are easy fixes. If you're eating, you're sleeping, and you're moving, whatever that moving might be, if it's 20 minutes walking around the block or whatever, it doesn't have to be hardcore workouts and endurance races. Could you be 20 minutes around the block every day?
Okay.
If you have those three things, those are fundamental things that anybody can achieve. Like no excuses, anybody can achieve 20 minutes walking a day, feeding yourself regularly, and sleeping at a reasonable hour. Even if you've got kids, and I've got a 7-year-old, so no excuses from my side. And if you can do those things, you're going to manage your emotions better. Right. And if you manage your emotions, you're going to make good decisions. And then you're on that track. Right. So I think that from my perspective, I try and help people to understand my story and how I've overcome certain things and how I deal with states of extreme anxiety or whatever it might be. If something hits me out of nowhere and I'm like, oh my God, I'm seriously anxious or seriously depressed right now, what do I do? I try and help people to understand how to manage that in those moments, but also try and give them the tools to take away that they can, that like with my wide range of mental issues, like if you just had a mild brush of anxiety because you didn't get to your mother-in-law's house on time for Sunday dinner, then you should probably be able to solve that if you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, and really then it comes down to signposting. How can people get the type of support they need, and what can they do for themselves? We shouldn't have to pay for mental health, right? Necessarily. We shouldn't have to pay for therapists and things like that. I know therapy has like a place and everything like this, and there are lots of things like that will support people's mental health. But ultimately, there are fundamentals that every human being can do for themselves, and that's what I want to give them. It costs nothing. It's just educated decisions and discipline. And if you can implement those, you're going to be fine.
And one of the things I'll do, if you're listening or watching this and you talked about, oh, what was that pyramid? What was that pyramid? I'll make sure that I get a link off you so that I can put that in the show notes if people
Yeah,
want
I'll send
to
you.
get to that.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely send you a link for that. No
Yeah.
problem.
So let's talk about
And also, I've got that on the website where it breaks down those things so that people can refresh and they can go, right, how do I? That's something for me that every day when I wake up, especially if I'm in a state of anxiety, sometimes when you get up in the morning, you're like, is today going to be a good day or a bad day? It's something that I look at most days and I'm like, feed yourself, move your body every day. Like feed yourself, move your body. Then worry about everything else.
But not when you're asleep.
Not when you're asleep. Ideally, don't.
No.
Don't move your body when you're asleep.
No, exactly. I've got
a bit of spooning every now and then is all right. So you can move your body where you need to get good sleep. But yeah, not too much.
My sleep is awful. Honestly, I think I got about 3 hours last night. Maybe I'll talk to you about that another time. So I have, as I walk into my office here, I have my my values. So my success values, and I've worked through all of this with a lady called Amy Rowlinson. And it's a reminder. And then I have my different what do I need to be today? And I look in my diary and I'm like, what do I need to do today? Okay, so what energy do I need to bring in? And I then literally I stick it on the top of the computer because I can get sidetracked and I can have a phone call from my husband. Sorry, Mark, if you're listening to this, but I can get a phone call from him and it's a quick suddenly do this. And I'm out of my Queen of Behaviours mode and I've got to be in Heath construction mode. And I'm just suddenly like, oh, I can't do this. I struggle to go from one to the next to the next. If I'm either today, like most of my days, I'm in Queen mode because this is what I'm doing. If I need to be on site, I'm like, okay, don't even come in here. And I just go to site and I can get everything done. And I think as the business is called the Queen of Behaviours, I still struggle with it. So I always think, how do other people? And when like you have a smorgasbord, but let's talk and move this into the outdoor space because yes, you are the bipolar businessman. Yes, you're a keynote speaker, a global keynote, well-known speaker. But we were introduced through Simon from Charity Challenge after I did the trek at Copperfield this year. And we've had a conversation and it's just like, I think you'd be really good becoming a wellbeing ambassador. And I was like, I would love that. Trekking out in the wilderness. And I like walking coaching because you're not looking at people in the eye. And I feel that people, especially when you take them out of their natural environment, suddenly there don't seem to be any barriers and people open up more. So what have you found by bringing groups of people on these treks as it unlocked for them?
I mean, initially the focus was to look at how could this be more impactful as a medium for corporate companies and organizations to get staff more connected with one another, because you've got lots of things like team building and all this kind of stuff, but ultimately for the most part people are working together for years and don't fully engage with one another. And I've been speaking in the wellbeing space, like I said, for over a decade now for lots of big brands, and on a fundamental level a lot of companies it's kind of like a toxic relationship. We talked about toxic relationships. It's very similar to a toxic relationship. When a man is in I know it works both ways, but let's assume the man's always the problem because that's what I hear all the time. Yeah.
Sorry.
Be mindful, everybody, that it does work both ways. There are
It
guys
does
out there
work.
being abused. So
Well, actually, no, sorry, because let's
bless
talk
them.
about your relationship that you were having when you stood on that platform and that you were being abused
Yeah.
in that relationship. So it does go, it is
I've definitely been there,
absolutely.
for sure. So,
Yeah.
but it's like a toxic relationship. The guy
Yeah.
doesn't want to empower the girl because she might leave him, and it's very much the same with regards to companies and how they look to empower their staff and involve their staff. And it doesn't make me very popular for saying it, but I don't need their money, so I will say it anyway because it's real.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think that is what I wanted to tackle, like this humanistic approach to helping people connect on a deeper level and become more human again.
Mm.
And companies are very quick to kind of pull in kind of technology or whatever it might be to blanket bomb an approach to what what well-being process might cover everybody so we don't have to worry about individualistic needs. But I don't really subscribe to that. We've seen well-being in business over the last 10 years decline. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. And there's way more money and attention and focus on it now than there was 10 years ago when it wasn't even a thing. So something's got to give. And ultimately, whatever they're doing is not working. So my decision was, after 10 years of trying to push companies to change their standards, I thought, okay, forget this. Like, I got into mental well-being because I wanted less people to take their own life. I wanted to effect a change in individuals who were struggling in the same way as I was struggling when I was stood on that train track. And so I decided that I would take it back to an individualistic level, whereby we get people in groups of 30 to 120, not just with me, but with multiple wellbeing facilitators, as we mentioned before, and work with them as individuals to help them to develop standards for themselves and to help them to understand more about one another during the course of this process. So as you mentioned, when you're on a trek, you're kind of walking side by side. It's not always, sometimes it's harder to look someone in the eye and have a conversation. But when you're walking side by side, you're trudging it out, you're sharing an experience, you're letting your mask down because your body's exhausted. It takes so much energy as a person who's struggling to keep that mask on and keep smiling all day long. And when you knock that out of people, in the sounds like pretty abusive. So but I just want to say, when you beat that out of people now, when you beat that out of people, like when you get them over that hill, when you make them trudge, like when you're sweating, when you're making people work, when you're helping them to choose some level of discomfort, like we're getting tired and we're too tired to lie anymore, and so we start to have real conversations and real truth. And the feedback we get from these types of things is that, I've known Deirdre in the office for 10 years and I've learned more about her in the last 10 days in Ecuador because we've spent all this time together, and I helped her up that cliff edge when she nearly dropped off into the desert or something
Yeah.
that never happens. All right. Don't worry. We're very safe people.
We are.
But I'm just giving a good example. Like, someone slips down a hill, someone picks them up, and it's like this common passion for supporting each other. Meanwhile, there's no mobile signal for the most part in the locations we get to. If you're in the Sahara Desert or on the Tukal Mountain or up the Himalayas, you're not going to get much signal. So you're present. And
Yeah.
ultimately, in the workspace, we're not present,
No.
So that's where I think we struggle in life. I watched your TED talk, actually, and it was totally true about this kind of people at the train station scrolling. Like, what are we teaching our children? This is the issue. I chastise myself when I'm on the phone too often when I'm with my son.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want it. Like, I take him outside, I do things outside, and he's so much more engaged. If I put on some kind of game or some kind of TV show, there'll be a point where he dips off, where he's like, okay, I'm not bothered anymore, let's play. When I'm outside, he doesn't dip off. Like, he will do that forever. And that's what we need to be cognizant of as human beings, is that we're so focused on this digital world and distractions away from the stuff we struggle with. We're just avoiding it. There's no difference between this, smoking a joint, having a beer, or anything else that's going to distract us from the pain that we feel, because we don't have enough human connection.
Yeah.
I want to deal with that as best as I can. And the only way I know how is to get hands-on with people, up close and personal, and then for those people to go away and impart that energy, that knowledge, and that mindset on other people. That's just the best way to do it.
Let's hit pause so I can tell you how I work with leaders and teams to turn behaviour into results. Have you got a panel session coming up? Panel guests should do more than just fill the time. They should spark change. I bring fresh, practical insights that challenge thinking and inspire action. It starts with you, and together we'll make it happen.
And if all I do is affect a change in those individuals, then for me, that's a life well lived, because there will be lives that are saved as part of
It's the
that
ripple
process.
effect, isn't it? Because if you saw that part of the end of my TEDx, when I talk about the
Yeah,
domino effect and the fact that,
yeah.
it's not just the person around you, but I mean, I know what it's like just having done the treks that I've done with Charity Challenges, who you've partnered with for Copperfield, and there have been moments where I've cried because suddenly we're just talking and things come up and come out. And I even remember one night at the Himalayas, and it was the end of the day. But TMI, sorry, listeners, but I'll always remember it because it was my last ever period. That was it, full stop. That's where I know that I am now postmenopause. And so my emotions were all over the place because I hadn't had a bleed for 7 months. Again, TMI, but I'm an oversharer. And G
I was
Fletcher,
hoping we'd get into it.
no, sorry, I don't know you that well. And G Fletcher had come out, and I don't know where her conversation got. And we just stood, and there was no one else around, and we just went, and we just had a hug, and we just hugged it out, and we both burst into tears. And I was just like, I don't, yeah, and we just came away, and it's moments like that where you think, actually, sleeping in a tent. For those again that know me, will be like, really, Vic, you're more of a five-star hotel kind of girl. But I've slept in tents and woken up damp and wet because it's windy and it's rainy. But it's all part of actually making me a better human.
It's
Not
just
just
real, isn't it? Right. Look, listen, ultimately, the fundamental is that we're all too civilized as human beings. If we haven't got Starbucks in our hand, if Amazon hasn't delivered what we thought of before we even thought of it, then we're not happy. And fundamentally, it's crap. Like, it
let's
means
go back to
nothing. It's
basic.
not adding any value to us, right? It's too convenient. We used to live in a cave and then go out on hunt and bang something on the head to drag it back for dinner, right? So what I subscribe to the Spartan methodology. Joe DeSena, who set up the Spartan race, would say, and David Goggins would say the same, like, choose your discomfort. Like, when you're ultimately comfortable, if you choose to walk out there, when I go for a run, I don't run up the path. Very often I'll crawl up the hill in the wet, in the cold, in what I don't care, through nettles, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Like, ultimately, no one wants to do that. I do it because no one will ever do that. And I do it because, like, it's just real. And when you do those kind of things and you realize that you're not made of glass and you realize what you're capable of, then suddenly the fact that you forgot to pay a phone bill at the end of the month and you're a bit late, like, doesn't feel so anxiety ridden.
Feeds your
So
soul.
ultimately, yeah, it feeds your soul. And so my ultimate aim in life is the knowledge that, yes, I have a lot of dark stuff that I deal with every day. And I'm not saying that it's easy every day for me. It's harrowing and it's hard. And Vix, you and I have had discussions when I've been in really bad places, right? But at the same time, the reason I'm able to keep moving forward is because I ultimately know myself. If you are not willing to kill me, you will not stop me from achieving what I've decided I'm going to achieve. Because
Mm.
I've been through so much stuff that should have killed me and could have killed me and might have killed me, not including myself, from as young as I can remember. And it didn't. So ultimately, if I'm choosing to tread this path, I'm going to endure it and I'm going to make it through. And I just want people to understand who they truly are,
Mm.
because it's so easy to take that road that is convenient. It's very hard to choose to crawl up a hill through some nettles when no one's there and no one's watching and you're not filming yourself for social media or whatever it is. But you choose to do it anyway because you know you're galvanizing yourself. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to do that. That's an extreme approach because I'm a
Bit
bit of
weird.
a Viking guy. and I like to push myself every now and then.
Yeah.
But I've been up on a mountain and I've seen a log like this, like a tree that's been cut down, and I've picked up the tree and put it on my shoulder, and I've run up that mountain with a tree. There's videos online of me doing this, and no one's there to watch me. There's no promotional activity going on. It's just like I'm choosing to do that because it's hard. And in choosing to do that, knowing no one will ever necessarily see it and that it's hard, when I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I could put that tree down now, you feel like a new person.
Mm.
And that goes with any park run, it goes with any half marathon, it goes with signing up for something like that. And I think it's really important as human beings that we take those steps and take on those challenges, because you're never going to truly know what you're capable of unless you try. And what we do is we get people together who have that mindset and who want to be better. And then we all encourage each other to move forward at the same time. That's what's so impactful about well-being in the wilderness.
Oh, and I do like I think it actually might have been when we're recording this. So today, or the reel you sent me yesterday, and I was just like, I'm coming. I am going to make sure that I get a group of my clients to get out there, just because I know the experience that I've had doing these challenges with Copperfield and Charity Challenge. So, oh,
Himalayan Trek, it's all on October
oh,
31st, 2026. No
I
messing
know, but
about.
got to get some
Be
people
there or
there.
be square.
Yeah, exactly.
Indian Himalayas, 31st of October,
Oh
2026.
God, have we got to do the overnight train up again as well, like we did at Copperfield?
Oh, you're gonna have to see. Gonna have to see. But this
Okay.
will be raising money for Calm, a campaign against living
Yes.
miserably. So it's a
Yeah.
suicide prevention charity close to my heart. And they've got like Ramesh Ranganathan and Danny Jones and all these kind of people involved and that kind of stuff. And I think it's just a great charity, right? These people are on the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, saving lives. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like as much money as we can give them to just keep doing that, keep picking up the phone to people, whether it's men, women, whatever,
Mm,
like just that's real. That's
it
real.
is. It
That
is.
it's not just people paying for admin. Do you know what I mean? It's
No,
like
and I think
picking up the phone where someone is at their lowest ebb. There's nothing
and
no greater than that.
if this is triggering for anybody, please do reach out and get in touch, because I've had conversations with other people who've been on this podcast, but when we've both been there, we know what it's like to be in that depths of despair where you think the only way is out,
Yeah.
that you want to just help those that are feeling that way too. Um, I don't really want to end on that note, but I
I
am
mean,
going to
listen, look,
say
there's light at the end of the tunnel, so we don't have to end at that note.
no,
Like,
no, no, no,
get in
no.
touch with us and
Yes,
we'll support you. And if anybody wants
absolutely.
to like do all the LinkedIn stuff or like just look
Yeah.
up Thomas Duncan Bell on LinkedIn. If you need support and advice, I'm more than happy to do that free of charge and everything. I can signpost you in the right direction or give you some advice or whatever you want. Or check out the Bipolar Businessman or Wellbeing in the Wilderness on Instagram. And again, free support and advice, guidance whenever people need it. I think that's the most important thing. We
And
don't
all
need
of
to earn money off
those.
everything. I think that's the main thing in life,
No,
right?
sometimes
If
actually,
you can
sometimes the
help
reward
someone
is
out.
that can be the biggest reward.
The
So,
dopamine for me is helping people to evolve, I think, at the end of the day. And if it's just sometimes you just need to point someone in the right direction and
yeah.
it's really helps them.
So I will make sure that all of your details are in the show notes. Obviously, people connected here will also find you because you'll be connected via the show as well. So, a final word from you, Thomas, before we bring this to a close.
I'll do a pre-final word and then a final word while I think about the final word. The pre-final word is I hate social
So
media, just to let you
ADHD.
know, and I hate like having to do a shameless plug of that kind of thing, right? But ultimately, it's a means to an end to supporting
Yeah.
people. So, like, do feel like you can get that kind of support and you're not on your own, because I think that's the most important thing. It's I mean, this I guess is turning into a final word already. I think the most important thing for everybody to understand is you aren't on your own when you're in that situation. There are so many people who are feeling that too. And for me in my life, I was at that point because I felt like I had no one and I was on my own. And it was very difficult to reach out to anyone and to speak to anyone. So I guess my final word would be in true sort of man gang, bipolar businessman style would be to say that it's not weak to speak and reach out, get in touch, connect with people. If you are aware, while we're on that subject, if you're aware of someone in your sphere that you think is struggling, you don't have to be their psychologist. Just ask them if they want a cup of tea, or if they want to watch a movie, or give them a cuddle. Because sometimes what we don't need is someone to solve our problems. Sometimes what we just need is to feel like someone is in that with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please do look in the show notes for all the contact details and get in touch with Thomas. Bye for now. Well, that's today's dose of truth. Now go make it happen, because behaviour drives behaviour. And behaviour starts with you.